Yes, I'm here. Oh my goodness. Good evening, good morning, wherever you might be. I just want to say thank you for joining me today. I'm Dr. Varian Staples, and you are with me today at Racing Cultures, Bridging the Divides. Racing Cultures, Bridging the Divides. Welcome for another episode. And I hope that we can definitely shed some light on some situations that's going on out there right now as I speak. You've all been very aware of Washington, D.C.'s dilemma situation. I'm going to jump right into it and just say there's a lot of things that are just, pardon my expression, but just downright funky. Makes no sense at all. And I'm here to tell you that I'm just totally amazed that this is happening in our country today. And so the title of my show today, or episode, Donald Trump and his attack in the city created by Benjamin Banneker. This is going to be a two-part series that I'm going to talk about, maybe three. But I just want to take us back to Washington, D.C., so we can look at something that transpired many years ago in that city. Well, actually 4 years ago in that city. So I just want to sit back and take a ride with me down memory lane and see if this brings back any kind of memories for you as we look at what's happened since then.
Yeah, just for awareness, be advised, there's probably about 300
January
Proud Boys.
6th,
They're marching eastbound
2020
in this 400 block of
in Washington, D.C.
Independence, actually on the mall towards the United States Capitol.
I am not allowed to say what's going to happen today because everyone's just going to have to watch.
We
themselves.
remember, we watch, and we talk.
It's going to
Why
happen.
not?
Something's going to happen.
Whose streets? Our streets! Whose streets? Our streets! Whose streets? Our streets!
This was at 11:22, and however, the event started, I think around 9:30 at the look. They were told to march to the Capitol, and I'm going to be there with you. That didn't happen. He was nowhere to be
I hope
seen.
Mike is going to do the right thing. I hope
There he
so.
is.
I hope so. Because if Mike Pence does the right thing, we win the election. All Vice President Pence has to do is send it back to the states to recertify. And we
Not
become
by
president, and you are the
official
happiest people.
electors that
Mike
were
Pence is going to
certified,
have to come through for us.
but through
And if he doesn't,
electors they made up.
that will be a sad day for our country. Because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
Cruiser 50, it does look like we're going to have an
This
ad hoc
was a bad
march stepping
situation.
off here.
Nothing
There's a
like
crowd
what
surge
happened
heading east.
that prompted this edict to put military in the streets of Washington, D.C.
Mike Pence, I hope you're going to stand up for the good of our Constitution
Yes.
and for the good of our country.
His name,
And if
Big
you're
Balls,
not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I will tell you right now.
was attacked by some teenagers, taking car, I think maybe 4 of them. And so this gave him the right to send in troops to the Capitol, like he sent these insurrectionists down the street, Pennsylvania Avenue, to the Capitol. Let's think about this. Oh, if you haven't thought about it, there were no troops sent
Madam Speaker,
when this was happening to
the
try
Vice
to
President
squash
and the
this.
United States Senate.
So at 1 o'clock, they were to get started on this certification. And outside,
We're going to give riot warnings.
people were coming
We're going to give
to
riot
assault
warnings.
and to do
We're
whatever.
going to try to get compliance, but this is now
We
effectively a
can't
riot.
erase this.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
The Bible
5 to
tells
50
us
be advised,
the eyes
Capitol Police
must
1
see,
advised they're trying to breach and get to the Capitol.
and if ears can hear, we know what truth is. No military there to help.
We're trying to make our way through.
Ironically, these people were dressed in military fatigue and misrepresentation of what the military stands for, should stand for. Every time I see this, I am just in shock. There's a good preacher that I know who wrote a series. I never thought I would see the day. That's how I feel.
We have a breach of the Capitol. Breach of the Capitol.
The breach.
Jack, be advised they're requesting
Several
additional
hours
resources
later.
on the east side as they've broken into that window and they're trying to
At
kick
least
it
3
in.
hours. No assistance. Cowboys.
Without objection, the chair declares the House in recess pursuant to Clause 12B of Rule 1.
This is the result of what you've been seeing.
My kids didn't have the courage to do what should have been done to protect our country and our Constitution, giving states a chance to certify a corrected set of facts.
Had already been certified legally.
Which they were asked to previously certify. U.S. demands the truth. Bring out Pence. Bring out Pence. Bring out Pence.
Will this happen again? To pick out people within our government, like the vice president, to hang them? This is truth. As someone says, my lying eyes. Let's see. We didn't see what we're seeing, we told. I do feel that what has taken place in Washington, D.C. is another form of distraction. What's really happening, especially as I had in previous episodes regarding the Epstein files, it's a great distraction. I don't have to talk about Epstein if I'm creating this kind of chaos on the streets of Washington, D.C. 2020 and even in 2025. Well, you know, people swear a lot. They are feeling unsure about what's happening, don't they? The law enforcement people are crippled alive, just like you can see the House members. There's Mike Pence, whom they want to hang. How can this be? And we understand that the person that sent them is also a convicted felon, 34 felony counts in addition to other criminal violations and impeachments. I'm just telling what we know are facts and what's the truth. These are the facts. Telling this person of the charges. You can hear kind of metal fear in people's voices. I must admit, I've never, ever been to the Capitol. When I was in elementary school, our elementary school had a big field trip, and they all went. My mother, single mother, being, raising us, she couldn't afford the money, nor could I afford it,
Cruiser
no matter
50,
how
be
many
advised that Capitol Police
paper
is going to
routes I
start moving
had.
their resources inside. They're going to start the M4 officers first.
I've never been inside the big Capitol in Washington State, but I can just imagine what it looked like after this happened. I heard that they had a lot to do. They had probably was non-Oath keepers, one of the groups.
208 with 4 members. The door's barricaded. There's people flooded the hallways outside. We have no way out.
In fact,
Don't-
officers still remaining on the House
Don't
floor,
tell me that's not
on the third floor,
mob
to
action.
use the subways themselves,
Look at
have
the
to evacuate, so
people
we
in
can
the
secure
house.
the members on the other
In
side.
afterwards, most of them, all of them, Republicans especially,
now, the American people.
look like it didn't happen.
One more
Pardon me,
time.
brother.
I'll tell you,
I think we're all supposed to be
And whatever
Americans
it takes, I'll lay my life down if
and
it
not
takes.
act like this.
Absolutely. That's why we showed up today.
Now they want to take Nancy Pelosi out. And we know what happened to Salt on her husband. Almost killed him. Got hit in the head with a hammer at his home. People giving him permission to treat people this way. Metropolitan Police being trampled. Lives were lost. I do know one of the insurrectionists, a young lady, got shot, being warned, coming to a window. Sorry that happened. None of this should happen. None of it should have happened. And why? The power, also deceit. People were told something by a person to believe in. This is how Hitler and Mussolini and other dictators and authoritarianism countries did it. Tell us that they're being treated like something. Listen to the last one.
These were great people.
Peaceful people.
The crowd was unbelievable. And I mentioned the word love. The love in the air. I've never seen anything like it.
I don't think I ever want to receive love like that. My goodness. See, the title of this episode is Donald Trump and his attack in the city created by Benjamin Banneker. I'm going to just show a little bit of the clip of Benjamin Banneker so you'll get an idea of what that really means.
We get down to the beat, y'all. We get down to the beat, y'all.
I'll just show a little bit of this.
Hello and welcome back. In this Black Excellist video, we will highlight the life and accomplishments of Benjamin Banneker. His story is not just about his remarkable achievements as an architect, astronomer, and author, but also a testament to his unwavering commitment to challenging racial prejudices and advocating for equality. Benjamin Banneker, a free black man in a nation grappling with the complexities of freedom and opportunity, defied expectations, leaving an enduring legacy that enriches the tapestry of American history. Our nation's capital wouldn't be the dazzling metropolis it is today without the ingenious touch of Benjamin Banneker. And at the turn of the century, when automobiles were still a newfangled marvel, there was another marvel in the making, the city of Washington, D.C. It wasn't just anyone who got to design this historic city. It was none other than George Washington, the very first president of the United States, who decided to give Benjamin Banneker the opportunity. It turns out it was Thomas Jefferson who gave him a glowing recommendation and suggested he be part of the planning committee, born on November 9th, 1731, in the area.
Now, you are aware that Thomas Jefferson had a certain affinity, I might say. He had his other wife, concubine, slave, Sally Hemings, whom he took over to France many times. They had 6 children together. So a little bit more about Thomas Jefferson has been revealed. He took a liking and a strong recommendation for Benjamin Banneker.
Now known as Ola, Maryland, Benjamin Banneker was the product of unique circumstances. His parents, Mary and Robert Banneker, themselves formerly enslaved, had secured their freedom, providing Benjamin with a rare legacy of liberty in a time when slavery cast a dark shadow over the lives of many African Americans. This freedom, though, did not shield the Banneker family from the racial prejudices of their era. As a child, Benjamin's education began at the hands of his maternal grandmother, Molly Welsh, an English dairymaid falsely accused of theft. Her ability to read during her trial saved her from a death sentence, but led to 7 years of indentured servitude in the American colonies. Molly's resilience and determination in the face of injustice undoubtedly influenced young Benjamin. As a free black child growing up in a society rife with racial tensions, Benjamin Banneker was introduced to both the privileges of freedom and the harsh realities of prejudice. His early education, guided by the wisdom of his indomitable grandmother, Molly Welsh, set the stage for his extraordinary journey. From a young age, it was clear that Benjamin Banneker possessed a prodigious intellect. His insatiable curiosity led him to explore the realms of mathematics and science independently. In his early 20s, he embarked on a remarkable endeavor that would astound his community, a wooden clock he constructed using a borrowed pocket watch as his guide. This wooden marvel would keep perfect time for an astonishing 50 years, earning its place as one of the wonders of the region. Young Benjamin's fascination with the inner workings of the...
Okay, I just wanted you to get an idea. This is a man, convicted felon, that has very much proven a disrespect for Black people, to the extent, even though President Obama is truly biracial, like a lot of people are. His father was from Kenya and his mother from the land of Toto and Dorothy in Kansas. He is truly African American, if I must use it like in the context of President Obama. But even what this man did, being elected, he moved President Obama's photograph away from the main area where you can see him, his picture in the White House, to some offset place up this back stairway. He has a total grudge or dislike for people like that. So Benjamin Banneker, a person like that. So was his move, his edict in DC, another distraction? Another distraction? Because if we look at the whole thing with DC, the construction of the buildings, just applauds what happened. The buildings in DC involved a variety of individuals and groups. The U.S. Capitol building design was initially won by Dr. William Thornton, and construction was overseen by multiple architects, including Benjamin Henry Latrobe and Charles Bulfinch. The White House was built, listen to this, with the labor of enslaved African Americans, Black people. They were still in slavery. They were enslaved and immigrants, with the design overseen by an Irish architect, another immigrant. Well, they might have been deported like they're being done to right now. Who knows? But I'm just saying we need to be very aware that we have the hands of Black folk and everything that has happened in this country, helped build this country, built the Capitol, designed the Capitol that is now under siege from an edict that I feel is a distraction, because this is what I think the distraction was a result of. At the same day that this was taking place, in DC, this is what was happening. His case in Los Angeles was happening the same day. So multiple sources confirmed that on August 11, 2025, a federal judge in San Francisco, Judge Charles Breyer, heard arguments about the legality of the Trump administration's deployment of the National Guard to Los Angeles in June 2025. Same day that he did what he did in DC. On the same day that I just alluded to, President Trump announced he would deploy 800 National Guard troops to Washington, D.C., citing concerns about violent crime. California is arguing that Trump violated the Posse Comitatus Act, which restricts the use of the military and domestic law enforcement when he federalized the California National Guard and sent them to Los Angeles to respond to protests, peaceful protests over immigration enforcement, according to NBC News. Of course, he often tells you this is all fake news unless it's coming from his mouth. So the federal government maintains that the deployment was solely to support immigration officials. The legal challenge is particularly significant because the DC deployment was announced while the Los Angeles case, which involves similar questions about the proper role of the military domestically, was being heard in court. The case could set a precedent for future deployments of the National Guard in California and other states. Listen to what I just said. The case could set a precedent. In other words, makes people think that this is okay to do for the National Guard in California and other states. It is important to note that the events of January 6, 2021 involved Trump's initial reluctance to deploy, I should say 2020, to deploy the National Guard to the Capitol, which later arrived under the directive of the Defense Department after the insurrectionists began, according to The Guardian. So in the recent DC deployment, some former police officers who were injured on January 6 expressed concern about the potential for authoritarianism, The Guardian also reported. So you see here, there's some serious things, serious problems going on here with what is happening. So what did we say? I want to close this out by showing another clip here from CNN. I don't really like to watch national or what they call it, network news, CNN, MSNBC anymore. But I get this information, and I think this is appropriate. But I think I want you to pay attention more to the end of what is being in terms of the fact check.
Constantly, including and especially this one in Washington, D.C., but militarizing United States cities, starting with the District of Columbia, frankly, because it's just easier because of the home rule law. What should we be thinking about, and what are you hearing from your sources in that building behind you?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we should look at this as the larger picture, as you're mentioning. I mean, he even talked about New York, Chicago, trying this out in D.C., and then he might go to other large cities, talking about crime in those cities. As you mentioned, this is something he talked about a lot on the campaign trail in terms of using federal law enforcement.
I just want to preface this. The cities that he outlined, the areas he outlined, were Democratic cities that happen to have Black mayors. Think about that. I'm not making this up. She just said it. And he has a thing as he deals with this issue. He has the idea that Black people are rappers and thugs and criminals, just like he talked about all the people that are being deported, that they're rapists and drug dealers and everything else, painting a picture of fear in people, of a group of people.
In cities, but we also want to mention that at various times he's walked back this idea of federalizing the law enforcement, putting National Guard into cities. And in fact, I've spoken to a number of people in the DC government who have said that they were surprised by this announcement, particularly given that the relationship seemed to be on okay terms between Mayor Muriel Bowser and President Trump. She has been in the Oval Office with him. She has had meetings
Mayor
with him. Their
Bowser was
teams are
initially
almost in constant touch, although it
just
does seem as
being
though
nice about it
this was something that
until
might have blindsided them. Clearly here he is ramping up the rhetoric around this. And two of the things that he said, in addition to obviously saying that the Metropolitan Police Department is going to be under federal law and deploying the National Guard, he said he might deploy active duty military to address crime. He also said that more service members might be going in as guardsmen. All of this to amplify the federal response. And I will tell you, Dana, one kind of strange part of all of this is that when we sat down in the briefing, they gave us a packet of information to show us some of the arrests that were made over the weekend as this starting to ramp up or increase in federal law enforcement took place. And they were fairly low-level criminals. It was somebody with possession or a DUI at one point, and there were only 5 of them, I believe, listed in this packet. So it's unclear. You know, he's talking about this major escalation in violent crime, but that is not quite clear from the packet of information they gave us here. And of course, I know you're going to have someone fact check the actual numbers coming out of DC and the Department of Justice. But he has clearly had some sort of an escalation when it comes to this just over the last 3 days. And I was told it was all he talked about all day Saturday were the outrageous crime numbers and how they were going to bring in more federal law enforcement.
All right, Kristen, thank you so much for that. And we are going to now do a deep dive into the fact check, claiming that Washington, D.C. is getting worse. And I want to bring in the one and only Daniel Dale. Daniel.
There was a lot of deception from the president there. So here's a reality check.
Deception?
There is no doubt that D.C. has for decades been a high crime city. It is among the U.S. cities with the highest homicide rates, though there are a bunch of other big cities that are worse. And D.C. did indeed have a big crime spike in 2023, which is the year the president kept citing. But contrary to what the president said today, even in 2023, D.C. did not have an all-time high in murder. It was way worse during the crack crisis of the 80s and early 90s. And more pressingly, Dana, the president was just flat wrong when he said it's getting worse now, not getting better. Crime in D.C., including murder, has fallen sharply since that 2023 spike. It fell in 2024. It's fallen further in 2025. So let's look at some of this data. In 2023, D.C. had its most murders in more than 2 decades, 274. Of course, that's terrible. But it then plunged to 187 murders last year, and it's been falling again so far this year. Through July, according to figures compiled by crime data expert Jeff Asher, D.C. had 34% fewer murders than it did through the same period in that year, 2023. Now, how about violent crime more broadly? Well, that's also down sharply in the last year and a half. In fact, per Jeff Asher, D.C.'s officially report.
I want to look at this. Okay, statistics can prove anything, I guess. But I think we need to look at it just from a more of an empirical standpoint, is that the crime went down, but that doesn't mean that there was no crime. Crime is crime. And most of the time, people don't pay attention to statistics. They could say things are down 35%, then other people are afraid of the 65%, or down 26%, and other people are afraid of the 74%. So that's the issue here, is that people will ignore the fact that there's a decrease, but they still are holding on to the element that still exists, that percentage that still exists. I don't agree that we should condone any kind of crime, but I do feel that there's other issues going on, and I think there's a lot of distraction. I think that we need to be very cognizant of the fact that we have a person that's always lived on having people have fear. All the people that are being deported have been given the picture that they're criminals and they're the worst of the worst. He even called them venom, which is actually taken from parts of Hitler's book in the Third Reich, where he referred to justify putting people in to gas chambers and shooting them and doing those things as I said venom, I meant vermin. Vermin? Yeah, that's it. Okay. So nevertheless, let's listen to the end of this here.
Reported violent crime rate in 2024 was the second lowest since 1966, so lower than every year of Trump's first administration. It's about a third of what it was in those bad old days, the early 1990s. And you heard from the president and his team about carjackings. Well, indeed a problem in DC, but what do the numbers say? Again, a big spike in 2023, down since. Asher noted the 16 carjackings reported in July were the fewest reported in any month in more than 5 years in DC, down more than 87% from the same month in 2023. So look, we know crime is an issue in DC. We've lived there. We know that every violent crime is a shame, a tragedy, of course, not excusing any of them. But this isn't an ongoing crime spike like President Trump suggested. And he said it's rising even in the text of the executive order. I went through it. The first section says crime is rising in the Capitol. That is just not true.
Daniel, thank you so much. Really appreciate you bringing all of that to us. Really important fact checks. And back here at the table, look, I'm not here to say that, as Daniel just showed with the actual facts and data, that crime is not an issue in this city or other cities across the country. The question is about scope and about the context in which crime is happening now versus what we've seen in the past, versus also the difference between now and the past, which is that you have a president who feels emboldened to use the National Guard and perhaps more active duty military on the streets of this country.
Yeah, and I think the question, what you brought up, David, is such an important one. Why is this happening now? I mean, this is a remarkable move by the president to federalize the DC police, to bring in the National Guard, to say that he would potentially bringing in active duty military. And I do think, look, this is clearly an issue that the president has bothered him for some time. Throughout this term in office, just the last couple of months, he hates driving through DC. When I was talking to White House officials, they say because he's been, whenever he takes his motorcade and he sees a homeless tent or something like that, it infuriates him further. And yes, he is someone who, you know, by and large wants to paint himself as a law and order president. He also repeatedly this year has gone farther than in his first term in testing the boundaries of his executive authority. And so we're kind of seeing that all come together. The question is why now? And it's one we don't really have an answer for. And to see him standing up there and taking questions for the better part over an hour really on this, it is remarkable, but it's still unclear why he's choosing this moment.
You didn't answer the Epstein question, though.
I would say, though, that although it is a dramatic step, this is tethered to how he has always felt about American cities. He has always felt that American cities, especially those with large Black populations like Washington, D.C., are crime-ridden and run by incompetent leadership, as he repeated today. But this comes with a tremendous amount of risk. Historically, when we have seen police be federalized, it has led in this country in some instances to extreme acts of violence. And so whatever happens in the days ahead, President Trump will ultimately have to own that. And then I'll say this. You know, Mayor Bowser, she really capitulated to President Trump. What did that ultimately get her? I think the Democrats more broadly are trying to figure out how to navigate Trump, how to work around him or with him in this moment. And it seemed like ultimately this display from him today was a spit in her face.
And listen, I mean, I mentioned this at the beginning, but we should give our viewers a little bit more information about why it is so easy for him to deal with D.C. versus other cities, because D.C. is not part of a state. Everybody knows that. And here's what the Home Rule Act of 1973 does. It allows presidents to take control of D.C. police for 48 hours if he determines that special conditions of an emergency nature exist. 48-hour period can be extended if he notifies relevant congressional committees, and then taking control for more than 30 days must be passed into law.
Yeah, I mean, there's a opportunistic aspect to this that, you know, as we said, he sees it every day, but the law allows him to do this. Now, it's not the first place he did this. He sent the federal troops into Los Angeles to crack down on protesters who are upset over the immigration raids, right? Yeah. So this is not the first time we're seeing this. And to Elena's point, in the second term, he is not just thinking about it and there's no one there to talk him down, no one there to say, well, we really should think long and hard about doing this. There are a lot of people who are saying, that sounds like a great idea, and they'll stand up there at the press conference with him and they'll pat him on the back and say, thanks to you, this is a great idea, and we're going to get it under control. I mean, you saw the people who are up there. Judge Janine, you know, so everybody's on the same page about this. There's nobody trying to restrain any of these impulses in the second term. And he's really going for it in a number of different ways. I think in terms of why now, we don't have concrete information, but I think two things that are obvious. One, he mentioned it himself, the attack on the Doge staffer recent days, and the fact that there was a carjacking and this person who has some notoriety, at least in D.C. or within the administration, was attacked. He cited that as sort of a pretext for doing this broader, more dramatic thing. And there was also a question at the end about the Epstein case. And the press conference, which went on for a long time, it ended pretty quickly after that subject was brought up. So is this another attempt to change the subject? We don't know, but that hypothesis certainly has to be thought about as well.
So there we have it. You know, it's interesting. Someone made the statement that there's crime every day. Well, see, there's crime like this in rural areas. There's crime like this in medium-sized cities, larger cities. Crime is crime. But if you look at the statistics for example, in Washington, D.C., and statistics taken from 2010 to 2020, 25% of the population in Washington, D.C. are Black. In Atlanta, Georgia, which is also on his list, 35% are Black. This, like I said, from then if I look down here, Baltimore, Maryland, you heard him talk many times about Baltimore, Maryland it's a scum of the earth kind of thing. Baltimore, Maryland, of course, has almost 30% Black. Memphis, Tennessee, 46%. New Orleans, 35%. Then we going down to Birmingham, Alabama, 30%. Oh, I forgot my hometown, Chicago. Oh, yeah, Chicago, interesting. It's only about 20%. So then we have other cities, but he said specifically, he named them out. Detroit, Michigan, also a very high population of Black folk. That's where his target is. He has this thing in his head for the Black and brown folk. Interesting. We have to think about what we should do in a time such as this. How do we combat this kind of authoritarianism? We have to keep on talking to each other. We have to keep on trying to do the right thing at the right way, always at the right time. Right here, Race and Cultures, Bridging the Divides. You can contact me you can go to my website and learn more about us and that type of thing. Race and Cultures, Bridging the Divides. At the top, there's a scan code, QR code, excuse me, where you can donate. This is a nonprofit entity. Funds are not for me, they're to help other people. Everything I do is a ministry. This is something that my wife, she's not here with me today, but we both feel that we need to help others, especially in a time such as this. So with no further ado, I'm very appreciative of your listening. Any comments, you can make comments to what you've been listening to. I will not respond to negativity, and I just don't do that. If you want to be positive, love one another, that's what I'm all about. I will accept constructive criticism, but anything that's targeted in a mean-spirited way, I will not respond to. I will respond to comments or questions that I get because we are all in this together. My phrase always is, we might have all come over here in different ships, but we're all in the same boat now together. Again, like and subscribe to the channel, visit the website, and I look forward to hearing from people as we move forward. I apologize that I had a little hiccup in getting this episode out, but I'm glad that you were able to join me today. And I look forward to the next time we get together, which will be very soon. This is part one. Part two will be more in terms of giving you more truth to power. And I appreciate the time. Go forth, enjoy one another in a positive way. Go out and touch a hand, make a friend, reach one, teach one. Thank you. God bless each and every one of you. See you next time.